confirm that we have audio from the audience. And then after that, then we'll get started. So I don't see the live feed yet. There's always an ad that runs in the beginning of these things. Hold on. Give me 1 second. Okay, so it looks like the audio is working. So let's go ahead and get started here, guys. All right, guys. This is Tai Zen, and I'm broadcasting from Dallas, Texas today. And with me today, we have some very special guests. First of all, we have the Honorable Grandmaster, legendary, world-renowned, LeonFu.com. Say hello, Leon.
Hey, guys.
The Oracle of cryptocurrency and an all-around good guy, all right? And then we also have with us our other team member, David Fong. We affectionately call him F here in-house because like in James Bond, he's our Q. He's the one that builds all the tools and the software that we need to manage our portfolio and trade and grow our portfolios faster and easier, okay? So today, guys, we have a very special guest from broadcasting. Oh, say hello, David. You know,
hey everybody, how's it all going? How you all doing?
Yeah, and David is broadcasting from Toronto. Is that correct?
That's right. I'm hanging out with my folks and my nieces, trying to make sure they remember me. So.
Okay, and Leon is broadcasting from the city of Austin, Texas. And today we have a special guest. Her name is Maxine Ryan. Say hello, Maxine.
Hi.
All right.
Excited to start this chat.
And Maxine is broadcasting from Hong Kong right now, and she is the CEO and the founder of Bitspark.
Just a correction, I'm actually COO.
COO, okay. All right. You are one of the founders of Bitspark, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we have reviewed a ton of ICOs and different cryptocurrency projects on our channel. You guys have been following us for the last 4 years, but we have never looked at a project that was an ICO or a cryptocurrency project that was started by a woman. The industry is dominated by men. And so when we saw this Bitspark and the Zephir ICO project, it caught our attention because we rarely have any ICO projects started by a woman. So can you start out, Maxine, by helping our audience understand how you first got into cryptocurrency, into Bitcoin and cryptocurrency?
Yeah, so I got into cryptocurrency back in 2014. And basically, at that time, I was studying and I had 6 months to graduate my degree in international relations. And very serendipitously, I met my co-founder, who was my housemate back then, and he was mining some Bitcoins. So obviously, being a curious person, I asked what the hell a Bitcoin is, and then everything changed. And basically what happened was I felt as though this technology was going to fundamentally change everything that I had known, including payments, how we exchange information, how information can be verified instantaneously. And I was just completely done for. I quit my degree, and then I started this company with my co-founder. So it happened pretty quickly. At that time, I was in Australia, and we moved the company to Hong Kong to start it. So we were actually the world's first cash-in, cash-out blockchain remittance platform. And since then, we've launched in 7 countries. So that's Hong Kong, Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines, Ghana, Pakistan, and Nigeria. So just in that very small time frame of 3.5 years, we were able to grow pretty quickly.
Okay, so you started Bitspark, which is a remittance company, and just so the audience knows, in case they're new to the remittance market, because we're broadcasting from the U.S., so there's the remittance market, you know, it is fairly good size here, especially between like Mexico and countries like that. Remittance market is where people are sending money from the country they live in back home to the country where they came from. or outside the country. Is that correct?
So remittances is a definition for a type of payment, which it tends to be done by migrants from their working country back to their home country. So the size of these remittances are typically called micro transfers, and they range, sometimes from 200 USD to 100 USD. It really depends on how much the person is earning. The reason why remittances are different to something like a bank transfer is that predominantly remittances are handled in cash. So for example, if I was an overseas foreign worker, I'd be paid by cash, and I would then go to a remittance house to then send that money overseas back to my family. Now, what's really interesting about this is that these money transfer operators who handle the cash payments, they don't actually, the systems that they use are very archaic. So they haven't been changed. So think of like the Western Unions, the MoneyGrams, things like this. The system itself is pretty broken, and basically what happens is that there's high costs, and those high costs get pushed on to the end users, which are those who need to send money back home.
Okay, so when you first discovered about Bitcoins and cryptocurrency in your college dorm in Australia, right? What inspired you to go into the remittance market after that? Well, why not? There's other areas of blockchains and cryptocurrencies that you can go into. What inspired you to go into the remittance market specifically?
Yeah, so when we first started, we were actually an exchange. So, that was where all the hype was when we first got started in 2014. And basically what happened was we just saw all these exchanges popping up. So we were like, hey, Hong Kong doesn't have an exchange. There's also no exchange that hosts cryptocurrencies other than Bitcoin. So our goal was to become a exchange. Well, at that time was to become an exchange, which would be able to have as many cryptocurrencies as possible. Now, the problem with that is that there was already so many exchanges at that time. And we decided, okay, how are we going to differentiate ourselves? And we had always thought of doing remittances anyway. We just thought that we'd start with the exchange so that we could become an exchange house, and then the remittance component can come in later. But we realized it's actually much easier to just get started with remittances itself. Now, why we use cryptocurrencies to do remittances is because it's faster and it's cheaper than sending cash overseas or using a bank's transfer. And at that time, we thought that we were going to be targeting those who are actually sending the money themselves. But we realized that it was the money transfer operators who had this really decades-old internal system that really needed to be changed and improved. So that's where the component of remittances and blockchain come together.
Okay, so Maxine, correct me if I'm incorrect here. My impression was the challenge for remittances is the last mile, right? It's not really that hard for me to say get money from my bank into, say, a Mexican bank or a bank in the Philippines, right? Just two examples of markets that have large remittances. The problem is that when you get to the other side, like they need to walk into a store or some storefront.
Exactly, yeah.
Like pick up like physical currency.
Yeah, to actually get physical cash, because a lot of these remittances are actually going to places where they can deal with cash. They don't need cryptocurrency, stuff like that. So that's why we were the first cash in, cash out. Yes. Now, to fix the last mile problem is we have 150 partners, and these 150 partners actually we get access to about 500,000 cash out locations. So we don't change the fundamental process of the remittance flow, so that's cash going in, cash going out, because that demographic is still very cash based. Cash is king, right? But what we do change is the inefficiencies of getting the cash in there in the first place. So for example, the existing remittance system, how it works is that there's a lot of hedging involved. So if I was sending money from Hong Kong to Philippines, I would have to make sure that the FX market is right. I have to send money in bulk. And basically that has a lot of high risk, and that risk equals cost, right? Now, what's different about cryptocurrencies is that obviously you can do it instantaneously. So we actually avoid that risk.
Okay, but I still don't quite understand, because all the risk, like in the traditional FX world, the crypto markets are even more volatile than the foreign currency markets, right?
Yeah.
So
basically, we only use cryptocurrency as a tool to send money. We do not hold customer funds in money. In cryptocurrency. So for example, if there's a licensed money transfer operator who is holding a balance with Bitspark, that balance is held in cash. It is not held in cryptocurrencies. It's only when there is a trade involved that it's done instantaneously. Now, like, I hope later on that we'll go and talk about why we're switching to BitShares, because that is actually a very strong component in terms of the inefficiency of Bitcoins now compared to where it was before. But
can you, just as an example, because I'm having trouble seeing how you're saving money versus Western Union. I mean, the reason it costs, say, Western Union it costs so much is because, number one, they have to do the whole last mile, right? It costs money to have a bunch of these storefronts where people can pick up cash, and number two, they have to comply with all the legal, KYC, AML, all the legal costs to be a regulated entity, right?
Yeah. So there's a few components that go into that, right? And you're completely right. The problem with things like Western Union is that they are bricks and mortar that has high overheads. Now our system is completely online. It's free to join. And basically anybody who has a computer and who is a licensed money transfer operator can log in, and after we get after their information goes through our compliance team, we're then able to verify them, and their shops can then become the cash in and cash out. Now that's where we can basically reduce the cost of having bricks and mortar. But another place where we can reduce costs is doing a transaction with cryptocurrencies is fundamentally cheaper than doing it with cash because there's less intermediaries. So it is a peer-to-peer transfer. Now with a peer-to-peer transfer, we're able to lower costs that way. Instead of saying, if you're using Swift system, which you need around $20 to do a micro transfer. Like if you're sending $100 and you have to pay $20 to do a small transfer, it's just not worth it.
Okay, but do you have the same, I understand that that's the built-in financial cost, but another big cost for something like a Western Union is the compliance cost, the lawyers and the right to, hiring the lawyers to deal with all the regulators to follow all the money transfer rules in every single country that they deal with. Won't you also have the same cost?
So in Hong Kong, cryptocurrencies is actually seen, or Bitcoin specifically, is seen as a commodity and not a currency. So even though Bitspark holds a money transfer license, it's not actually seen under the same regulations as it is with currencies. So it is true that some of the cost of Western Union is compliance, but it's not all the cost. There's a lot of components that go into it. So, later on, we'll probably see that governments will start trying to regulate Bitcoin or some sort of cryptocurrency, and perhaps there'll be costs that are inferred then, but that's certainly not the case right now.
So what is your biggest market right now? Like what between which two countries is the remittance that?
Yeah, so this is really interesting. Basically, the biggest market that we have is from Hong Kong to Philippines and to Indonesia. So in Hong Kong, the population here is about it's about 300,000 overseas foreign workers, and they are split between Philippines and Indonesia. Now they all need to send money back home. What's really been interesting actually is looking at the FX rate that we're able to provide our customers. So if we're sending to places like Nigeria or Pakistan, we can actually be 14% better than if they were to go to a traditional shop. And the reason why that is because in these traditional in these markets, basically what happens is that when you send money, there's a lot of cost, there's a lot of intermediaries that are involved. So an example I always like to give is in Africa, there are 9 countries that are connected to the Central African franc. And basically, if you want to send money from Benin to the Ivory Coast, you can't do that because the banks don't speak to one another and they don't work together. So there are costs in that in itself. So I think the main points that I would probably get across as to why cryptocurrencies are better for certain markets is because it's actually peer-to-peer, and you reduce costs by cutting out intermediaries. It's like, you know, it's just the principles of P2P remittances.
So, and so what are the mechanics? Like if I'm in Hong Kong and I want to send money back to Indonesia, as you said, like, do I bring my Hong Kong, I assume I have a job. If I'm one of these migrants, I'm working somewhere and I earn Hong Kong dollars and I want to send it to my family back in Indonesia. Do I just go to like a Bitspark? Is it a similar experience?
Yeah. So like I think like the most important thing about trying to get more people using cryptocurrency based products is to ensure that they don't need to learn anything about it. So none of our products require the end users to need to know what cryptocurrency is, how to use it, because to be honest, it is a very, you know, it's still very difficult to use. Not everybody, there's time that you need to put in to be able to understand how to use it. So the way that the process works at the moment is, you know, a person walks into the shop, they have their remittance, they give over their ID, they fill in the AML KYC, the licensed money transfer operator who is using Bitspark system will then look at that information and say, okay, they're in the clear, and then they then send that transaction. And so for the end users, there's no difference to how they would typically have to send a remittance.
Is that vendor in Hong Kong taking like my Hong Kong dollars and then buying Bitcoins with them and then sending it over to?
So Bitspark handles all the transactions that have to do with cryptocurrency. So he doesn't have to know, you know, what a Bitcoin is, like how to trade it, how to get it, cash it out, which exchanges use.
Right, you guys are then taking that money, buying Bitcoins with those Hong Kong dollars, and then on the other side selling it for the Indonesian currency.
Yeah, and then we're able to then cash out in a bank, in a pawn shop, in a, you know, a convenience store. In Indonesia, they use post offices, but basically the customer they have more choice. They have more countries to send to, and they also have more cash out locations to send to. Okay. So basically, like the problem with money transfer operators is that they have to use several systems at once to gain access to different markets. With Bitspark, you know, we're continuously adding more markets, and there's also more cash out locations. So there's less maintenance. There's no sign up fee, none of that. They just can get started immediately.
Okay. So an end user, if I was an end user, I wouldn't go up to somewhere that says Bitspark. I would just go to somewhere I would normally do my remittances. Yeah. And in the back end, that's what's happening.
Exactly. So the way that I like to think about it is that we're not changing how the workflow exists. We're changing the plumbing, because the plumbing sucks.
Okay, so that was my question right there. So it sounds like to the end user who is sending money home to their family, on the surface, they just see the same thing. And what you guys are doing with Bitspark is coming in and, like you said, change the plumbing, is that the infrastructure underneath the surface, you guys are using the cryptocurrency, the blockchain. You were formerly using Bitcoin before. You said now you're moving towards BitShares. We'll get to that BitShares portion in a minute. But you're using the cryptocurrency technology underlying all this to basically confirm and settle the remittance transaction quickly so that you can release the funds on the other end. Is that basically what you're doing?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about why you guys made the decision to switch over to the BitShares network? Because we've been researching a lot of blockchains and the differences between them internally on our team. And we have also come to the conclusion that the BitShares network is also one of the fastest blockchains on the market right now.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's so many reasons as to why we're switching to BitShares, and we actually wrote a pretty lengthy blog post about that that's available on Steemit. But basically, the key components is that with BitShares, you get access to 180 plus currencies with no banks, right? And that is incredibly important to try to get microtransactions all over the world. On top of that, it's faster. It's much faster than the Bitcoin network and any other network that's out there. And another component is that their exchange is decentralized. So from the security standpoint, that's incredibly important. Now, how BitShares actually will be used for us is we will be working with the United Nations Development Program to do a test pilot of basically domestic transfers in Tajikistan. So what will basically happen is that one person in a village in Tajikistan will be sending a transfer to another person in a village in Tajikistan using the BitShares network, and they'll be using the Bit Simony or something like that. So I think the main component is that remittances are available for only a few, but there's a lot of countries that actually miss out because of currency controls, because of not being able to get access to a bank account and issues like that. So those are just kind of a quick roundup as to why we'd be using BitShares.
I have a question about that. Like, one of the reasons Bitcoin is so popular is the liquidity. I mean, billions are traded every single day, on Bitcoin markets across the world. So it's very easy to move, large amounts of money in and out of Bitcoin versus any other cryptocurrency. Now, but BitShares, is there enough liquidity? Do you have enough trade volume to do all the?
Yeah, so basically the way that will work is that the reason why we're switching to BitShares in the first place, or we're kind of creating the Bitspark 2.0, as we call it, is that somebody's remittance who is going to the other side will be already being bought. So that's where Zephir will come into play. So essentially, liquidity is not as big as a problem as one would think. It's just that if there is a buy and sell order there, it will be taken because it will be at a lower market price than anywhere else. So with liquidity, it's interesting because it's a question that we get quite often. But I think that the market is a little bit, it's not mature enough for us to make an estimation as to whether or not it's going to be sufficient. Now, if you look at BitUSD or we can then pair it to BitUSD. So for example, we might be selling Bit Simony, but then we can be selling it for BitUSD as well. So it will be paired in some aspect, but that will be divulged later on.
So like, if you look at the coin market cap right now, Maxine, it says BitShares has a trading volume of like 5 million, let's just say estimate, and the trading volume for Bitcoin is over 1 billion. So do you see that as a
hurdle?
Yeah, as a hurdle, because let's say that I'm trying to send $10 million through Bitspark. Is it possible, or is there a limit on how much I can send through the network?
Yeah, the thing is that it will be a slow progression to the BitShares network, and it is something that we are testing. For now, we are still using the Bitcoin network just because of the liquidity. But we've got some plans in terms of making almost like a an Uberization of remittances in these different networks. So we kind of hope that we'll be able to get enough people who will buy and sell. Now, this is where our money transfer operators become very important, because essentially people can then go into a money transfer shop and liquidate their balances. So for example, I'm a money transfer shop and I have cash and I need to get Bit Simony. Somebody would then, like maybe a local entrepreneur would come in and sell me Bit Simony for my cash, and then they would be able to earn a profit on that. So that is also a solution that we're going to be implementing as well.
Okay, if you guys don't have any other questions about the Bitspark remittance system, I'd like to move on to about the Zephir ICO. You guys have any other questions?
No, that's it for me.
So can you talk about the, I noticed that you guys, obviously we're a cryptocurrency investing channel, so remittance is cool and everything, for the audience, but this is a cryptocurrency investing channel. And the reason that y'all's project caught our attention is because you guys are about to do an ICO for a project called Zephir. Can you talk about a little bit to our audience about what is Zephir and how is that related to Bitspark?
Yeah, so Zephir is a token sale which we are launching on the 6th of October. And basically the purpose of Zephir is to be able to create a rewards program for those who economically benefit the Bitspark network. So the Bitspark network, it's an ecosystem where people can send and receive, top up and refer people to use it. Now we want to be able to benefit those who are doing good for the system by giving them basically Zephyrs, right? So on top of that, every single successful transaction, 25% of that successful transaction in profits will be going back to buying Zephir tokens. So we hope that that will provide, not only more liquidity, but also a positive price pressure on the Zephir market itself. Now, the reason why that is an important component for remittances is because it is a very word of mouth and referral and community-based, I guess, environment. People there, they are looking for a second income. So for example, if I can go top up somebody's mobile phone, if I can go top up a money transfer operator, or if I can even earn by doing a remittance, then they're more likely to do that. And also, we kind of hope that it will be a opportunity for people who are sending remittances to be able to invest in cryptocurrencies and also widen their knowledge of cryptocurrencies in general.
Okay, so so in addition to being a rewards program to incentivize people, I guess it's to incentivize people to continue using the Bitspark network, and then it's also to inspire other people, motivate other people to want to use it. Because if I'm a Bitspark user and I'm getting these loyalty points called Zephir, and more than likely, I'm gonna accumulate more of it if I can introduce it to my friends, to David or Leon, or get other people involved. Is that what that is?
Yeah, exactly. So the thing is that we actually do a rewards program now anyway, and it's a very, I guess, normal marketing strategy. The thing is that we want it to mean more, and we want it to be digitalized. At the moment, with a lot of remittance companies, these reward programs are actually hard cash. So we want to start making everything digitalized, where if somebody's sending a remittance and or let's just say they've topped up, if they've verified somebody, then they'll be at maybe a couple of Zephir tokens, and then that will incentivize them to use the the platform more, or the remittance app more.
Okay, and so the natural question that we always ask every ICO project that we interview and research, okay, so we got like 860 cryptocurrencies out there on the market already. Do we have a need for another one, the 861st cryptocurrency, or do we need an extra token on top of it? What is it about Zephir that makes it different from all the other 860 cryptocurrencies?
The difference is that it is backed by something. Bitspark has existed. Oh, sorry, there's a bit of an echo. Yeah, so Bitspark has existed, since 2014. We are backed by the Hong Kong government through their incubation program. We have an immense track record with Accenture, 630. We have VC funding, and I think that a lot of these token sales or these ICOs, you're not quite sure who's behind it, if they can execute a plan. Now, Bitspark, we've been able in the last 3 years to release 2 products. We have over 150 partners and 500,000 cash out locations all over the world. We have a large team. So I think it's and it's actually based on something. It's based on the remittance network that Bitspark has created. So Zephir is a reward token for Bitspark's fiat-pegged cryptocurrency network. Like that is the foundation of it. So if you look at a lot of these coins that are available, it's predominantly speculation. It's not actually based on anything. So I think that's the value add in terms of Zephir and Bitspark.
Yeah, so I have a question. Yesterday, I'm a Bank to the Future,
Ah, nice. So,
yeah. When Ty told me that we were going to interview Bitspark, and I just happened to get the email in the same when he told me, I happened to get this email from Bank to the Future. Can you talk a bit about what is the relationship between Bitspark, the Zephir ICO, or the Bank to the Future thing? Yeah, so I think it was 2015 that we did a crowdfunding round on Bank to the Future, and then when Simon Dixon, who is the CEO of Bank to the Future, heard that we were doing an ICO, he suggested that we would launch it. We would launch a special price basically for the Bank to the Future qualifying investors. So we're actually the first ICO that has been on their
or sorry, we're the first token sale that has been on the ICO page. And I'm really happy that you're able to see that, actually. It's pretty cool.
Okay, so there's a sale going on Bank to the Future. Is it at a 60% discount? That's what the email says. That
Yeah. So the thing is that the reason why we are doing that is because, you know, back in 2015, we had investors from the crowdfunding round, and that is just basically like an ode to them and thanking them for, you know, believing in us and then investing in us as well. So if that's actually opened, I think, for the next 20 days. So it'd be really great if people can capitalize on that and get 60% off.
Okay, so the people that decide to invest or purchase the Zephir ICO, the Zephir tokens via Simon Dixon's Bank to the Future site, right? You're saying that if they go through there, they get a 60% discount. But before we talk about the discount, right? Can you talk about, is there a cap on how much money that you guys are looking to raise for the Zephir token?
So in total coins in existence, there's 2 billion to represent the 2 billion unbanked. The total tokens that will be available is 600 million, and it is capped at 10 mil.
Okay, can you say that last part again? I think I missed it.
Yeah, so it's in total coin creation, there's 2 billion to represent 2 billion unbanked. And then the total that is available on market to buy is 600 million, and where it's capped at 10 mil.
Is this a fixed price? So basically, are you selling it with a fixed price with a discount? Is that the model right now, that there's going to be a fixed price in terms of Bitcoin or Ether? Like how are you running this?
Yeah, so basically, if you go to the white paper, you'll be able to see the pricing model. So basically, the earliest you go in, then the cheaper that it will be. But yes, it is a fixed price. People can now deposit Ether, BTC, and also BitShares. And I would strongly suggest people to look at the white paper, because there's quite a few nice little discounts in there.
Now, is this going? So you guys are releasing the Zephir token. Is this going to be done on the BitShares network, or is this a completely brand new blockchain?
So it will be on BitShares decentralized exchange, and then probably after we finish doing the raise, we will be hosting it on different exchanges. Now, the reason why we're doing it on the BitShares exchange first is because that is the network that we're going to be using ultimately. But yes, we will be launching it on other exchanges in the future.
Okay, I have a comment about that, because we've invested in several tokens in the past that launched on BitShares, and the problem with all of them, at least with all the ones that I've invested in, is very low liquidity. Like, unlike, say, if you were to launch the token as an ERC20 token, for example, those tend to get listed by exchanges very quickly. They tend to get good trading volume right out of the gate as an ERC20. But the projects that I've seen list on BitShares tend to don't trade. There's no market for them.
Yeah, there's not much liquidity. So that's why we are going to be launching on other exchanges. We do hope that the liquidity won't be too much of an issue, and then as we list on different exchanges, that will change over time. But yeah, it's definitely a concern. But I probably see us listing immediately after the ICO on the 6th of November. That's when it ends, and then we'll be launching on other ones soon. So.
Do you have agreements or with exchanges to list?
So we're in the middle of talking with them at the moment. At the moment, it's kind of more of like a time constraint.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
But yeah, it's definitely a big one.
And then how long are you planning to run this ICO for? A month, 2 months, and how did you come to that time decision?
That time frame?
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, we decided on a month. Excuse me. And the reason why we decided in a month is because in November, we will be going to Tajikistan to be launching this project. And we just thought that it would be a really great component to make in time for this Tajikistan component that we're doing with the UNDP. So we hope that by November, when we can set up the domestic remittance program there, that people will also be able to participate with the Zephir Award.
Okay, so you're saying that your goal is to plan on raising a cap of your goal is a target of 10 million for the Zephyr project, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So now, just I know that the BitShares network has a fast speed confirmation and settlement speeds and all that, But I'm just thinking that with the from a business perspective, that with all the ICOs selling out, the ones that are on the Ethereum network, right? Did it cross y'all's mind to possibly do the token sale using an ERC20 token like Leon had mentioned, just so that you can have assurance that you can raise that $10 million?
The thing is that for us, the money isn't so important as the technology. So the reason why we're sticking with BitShares is because of what it provides us. It provides us 180 plus currencies with no banks. A lot of people have asked us why we don't use Ethereum, and it's because it's just not made for remittances. Remittances is a different type of beast, and when we analyze BitShares and the access that it gives you, which is what we need to solve in remittances, it's access. That's the most important component. So maybe if we were raising on Ethereum blockchain, yeah, perhaps the community is bigger. But we want to stay true as to why we're using BitShares and why it's important to our our ultimate goal.
Okay. So that's the. Do you guys have any other questions?
No, that's the questions I have for now.
Now, hey, this is kind of off the wall a little bit here, okay? But is it what prompted you guys to name it Zephir? I'm always curious how these names come up for different projects. Does this have anything to do with the Matrix? Isn't one of the battleships inside the Matrix?
No, I mean the thing is like Zephir means a breeze. It means a cloud, and we want that to be what people experience when they send money overseas. We've all experienced like that headache of sending money. And you and I, we have access to like banks. We have we're not cash predominantly, right? We don't use cash predominantly. So the idea behind that is we want to be able to give access. We want people to send money like a breeze.
Okay, I did a quick question.
It's kind of on the wall here too.
Okay, so I didn't know if that was a reference to the Matrix or something like that. Because you got Neo, the AntShares that rebranded to Neo, and they were using like the Matrix type, and I didn't know if you guys were looking. Hey, Neo had success by playing.
We can also mean that as well. We're a network, but yeah, it's predominantly to do with the speed and access.
Oh, that's great. So just why did you choose the remittance market in the first place? That whole industry? Is there some reason that prompted you to?
It just sucks. Okay, so this is the biggest problem when it comes to the remittance industry is that it's old. And basically the people who are competitors there, like the Western Union, stuff like that, they're very complacent and they're happy with how things are going. But I don't see anybody trying to change anything fundamental about the remittance market. You can see a lot of people using blockchain, for capital markets, for trade finance, all this type of stuff. But nobody really looks at why cryptocurrencies were created in the first place, and that's predominantly to do payments faster, better, and in a trustless system. So for me, like the immediate application of that was into payments.
Okay. Hey, one of the things that caught our attention, you had asked in the email when we were corresponding to set up this interview, you had asked how we heard about the Zephyr Project, and I think it was just something on my Twitter feed or something like that. We have we have several thousand followers on our Twitter feed, and somebody had mentioned something about it. you know. And when Leon and I first started reviewing ICOs back in 2014, it was not very difficult to review an ICO because there wasn't that many. So only the serious people were coming out with ICOs and stuff. And then all of a sudden, there was a bunch of, jokers and clowns coming out with ICOs all the time. So when I ran across y'all's Zephyr project and the Bitspark project, right, that's what caught my attention, because it was actually someone that was a real person, because you have all these ICOs where you don't even know who they are,
it's really important. Transparency is incredibly important, and I think that's how we differentiate ourselves in the end.
Yeah, and it didn't take me that long to search for Maxine Ryan on YouTube, and there was you had done a bunch of talks at different places, and you've been written up in several different publications online and stuff. So it's like a real person. So one of the things that we are always concerned about is that if we talk about a certain project, we're always concerned. We're in the back of our minds, we're hoping like, man, I hope that this is not a scam bullshit project or something, and that we're introducing to our audience. So it made it a little bit easier to look into setting up an interview with you guys, because at least we know that there's real people behind this project, and we don't think that every project that we interview is going to be a home run that's going to become the next Google or Facebook. But the one thing that we don't want to do is interview any projects that turn out to be a scam or something like that to the public, So it was good to see that you had spoken at several other venues already before we reached out to you, Are there any misconceptions or misunderstandings about Bitspark or Zephir that you have seen in the media that you would like to clear up, so that when people review your project, they don't get led down the wrong path about it?
No, I mean, I'm very confident about our image online and how it represents us. I honestly don't think that if anybody went online and searched anything up, they would perceive something that was incorrect. So yeah, I mean, I'm really confident about it. We've always had really good feedback from media, and also from the acceleration programs that we've been in, and also with banks and partners in Hong Kong. A lot of people come to us to ask us our advice as to how to start a new company, and we're pretty active in the community here. So
speaking of starting a new company, right? We always, the mission of our channel and our site is to, help accelerate the adoption of blockchain technology, right? We don't favor any specific blockchain. We just believe that if it becomes mainstream, it can really help everyone, right? So speaking of businesses and you helping businesses, since you're one of the few female-oriented businesses involved in the cryptocurrency space, right? What advice or recommendations or opinions do you, first of all, what opportunities do you see for women in cryptocurrencies and blockchains in this big blockchain space in general? So there's, we do have 8% of our audience are female, and
hi.
Surprisingly enough, that 8% is made up of a lot of young women, right? Which is kind of surprising when I was looking at the analytics. There are a lot of high school and college kids. So what would you say to those young kids, the young females that are watching this channel and following us? What would you say to them about the opportunities that are available and what they can look forward to get involved?
Yeah, I think a really big misconception with any sort of technology that's up and coming is that you need to be some sort of tech wizard to understand. So, for me, I didn't come from a technical background, but I understood the fundamental pillars of blockchain technology, cryptocurrencies, and what it meant. And then from there, through pure passion, I was able to then learn, the technical side, the business side. There's so much more than the technical side to this technology, because the technology exists, but if you cannot build good products on top of it, if you cannot sell it, if you cannot market it, if you cannot find investment, then really it's not going to be growing. So I think that in the blockchain space, there's more than one role anybody can take.
So if, let's say that we have a young girl that's watching this from high school or college, and they are interested, inspired from your interview here to get involved in the blockchain space, right? Is there, what would be the best and ideal venue for them to reach out to you with questions or anything like that? Or
I think Twitter, like Twitter all the way. Twitter is the best way to, communicate effectively. So, and my email is always available and things like that, but mostly through Twitter.
okay, so that's I have your Twitter information and everything underneath the description of this video. So if you watch this and you have any questions about Bitspark, the Zephir, or for women and blockchain in general,
like a really good thing that helped me was going to going online and trying to find some meetups that were blockchain orientated. And I think a lot more people are noticing. Like, for example, I did a woman in fintech panel the other day, and the audience was about 50 people, and most of them were women. And I was really surprised because about a year and a half ago, that just would not have happened. So I can already see that a lot more women are getting into the space, and it makes me really happy. And there's also a lot more women who are heading this. So there's Blythe Masters, who's doing distributed ledger technology. She started, I think, about a year and a half ago. And I'm seeing more and more women actually heading up this space as well. So it's pretty cool.
So we on our channel, we also like to inspire people, whether it's men or women, to move forward with their dreams and stuff and their business goals. And like what, from a motivational and personal perspective, right? Like when Leon and I and David, when we go to a cryptocurrency conference, it's like heavily dominated by men, and we only see like a few women in there. Like how do you overcome that personally? Like when you go into a field where all you see is guys, dominating the field, right? Does that put fear into you, or does that inspire you? For some people, they get scared of that and they leave. And then for others, they get inspired by that and it motivates them to excel, right?
For me, it's like I really don't see gender. Like it doesn't really affect me. So if I walked into a room, I'm not thinking, oh, there's a bunch of like males in here. I'm thinking, wow, there's a lot of really cool people that I want to meet and I want to share my ideas with. So I think it's all about the mindset. Because if and it's with anybody, it doesn't matter if it's gender, it could be your age, it could be anything. Like you didn't graduate from university or whatever like chip you have on your shoulder. It's really up to you to decide how you want to change your mentality and get out there. I think the biggest thing is just getting out there. That's the hardest thing. And then after a while, you start making friends and you start realizing that you can go to a Bitcoin meetup in Geneva. And you'll meet people there that shares the same idea. And I think there's something very powerful about this space that's happening at the moment. I mean, think about how much it's grown, the investment that's been in here, how many businesses are sprouting up. Like there's definitely some sort of like paradigm shift in the way of thinking. And I think over time, just as we see with like mobile phones or with cars or anything like that, everybody will start adopting it. So yeah, don't miss out. That's the biggest thing. Just don't miss out on this incredible opportunity.
Okay, I just text everyone in the chat box to submit any questions that they have for you, and we'll answer a few questions before we wrap up and conclude this broadcast. Okay, now do you guys have any other questions for Maxine? And if you guys have any questions in the audience, please leave it in the chat box, and I'll ask them to Maxine.
Hey Ty, I have to run here because I have.
Okay.
So it's good to meet you, Maxine. I'm just gonna. Sure we'll
nice seeing you, Leon.
Yeah, Leon. All right, thanks, Leon.
Oh, sorry, I can't really can't hear you, Ty.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, he had a doctor's appointment that he had to run to. Okay, so we got one question from Robert Konsdorf, Maxine, and he asked, "What are all the ways that Zephir can be earned if someone does not invest in the ICO? Like, are there bounties or things like?"
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mention that earlier, but yeah, we do have a bounty available on It's on Bitcoin Talk. So if they just search up Zephir ICO bounty, they'll be able to find it there. And we've got a pretty comprehensive bounty there that a lot of people can be involved in. It's across lots of channels like YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. So yeah, I mean, I really strongly encourage people to go down that route if they don't want to go through the investing route, because it's pretty much like it's for free, right? All you have to do is spread the word. Sorry,
another question from Kim Ogun, Maxine, and this is a pretty good question I forgot to ask earlier, is how do you hope to operate in countries like Nigeria? And not just Nigeria, but countries that are high in like financial fraud stuff, how does Bitspark and deal with those countries like that? Because like for some, I don't know how it is in Hong Kong, but like all the traditional stock, Forex, futures brokers in America, most of them will not allow a Nigerian resident or citizen to open up an account. They just, because I talked to some brokers here and they're like, we just don't want to deal with all the fraud that we have to deal with. And it's easier not to just.
Yeah, there's the Nigerian prince issue. Yeah, so basically the way that we do that is we have standard AML KYC protocols that we have to abide by, having a license. And then also our money transfer operators are also licensed. So they have their standard protocol, which they have to go through themselves. So a lot of this is going through their name, their ID, like the points of ID that they need to produce. If they're sending a larger amount of money, then there's more that they have to produce in terms of identification. A lot of the systems, or like the system we provide, if somebody's name goes through it, it goes through the terrorist list and all this type of stuff. So in terms of our protocol to identify and prevent fraudulent identification is actually embedded in our system itself. And this is actually a lot better than the existing systems that you have where they don't provide that type of, security blanket that we do.
Okay, that's all the questions that I see coming in. Someone just referred to you as the female Vitalik. I never heard that before. Yeah, I guess that's a good compliment, So, have you met Vitalik or worked with him before?
No, you know what? It was really weird. He was here for a conference of, I don't know, maybe when I first got started, and I couldn't make the meetup, but I walked past him, and you know how he's just so like identifiable, like everybody knows him in the crypto world. And I was about to say something, but he just kind of like went away. So I was like, oh, there's my moment lost. So I hope when he's here next time, I'll be able to meet him properly.
Hey, so we interviewed him in person when he first came out. We were one of the first channels to interview him about the Ethereum project. You can go back to our channel way in the past and watch me and Leon interview him in person at the Texas Bitcoin conference. And we thought he's a pretty amazing dude. I think he was like 19 or 20 at the time, and he was coming to this project, and we were like, our team was like, you know what, we're loading up on this guy.
Oh yeah, like I mean, the thing is, it's like with everything, you kind of need the people in the forefront that are leading this thing. So it's really good to have like the core people who are spreading ideas, like spreading the logic as to why this is important.
Someone asked Raphael, he said, is there anywhere in London to send money via Bitspark?
Not yet, but please be in tune with our social media because we always add new countries. We are actually talking to some parties in the UK to enable that functionality. It's just all about getting the shop. So predominantly we're Asia-based for now, but yeah, definitely sometime soon.
Well, what about to Latin countries like Mexico or any of the South American countries?
Yeah, I mean,
come from the U.S. and that's a huge remittance market in the U.S.
Yeah, it is. So the thing is that we're not actually going to be functioning in the US for now, just because I think that there's other markets that are perhaps less saturated with competition. So what you actually see is that you see the really popular markets that are just completely saturated, but then that actually shows a lot of neglect for the stands, like Tajikistan, all this type of stuff. We want to there's people who already have access and there's people who have very limited access. I think that we should be able to provide a platform that everybody can basically get involved with. So definitely soon. I think basically if you look at the timeline on our website, we're aiming for, I think, end of this year, or at least Q1 of next year, to have, a lot of currencies up and running.
Okay, so we have two last questions here, Maxine. Robert asked if you can clarify how someone can earn the Zeph tokens for providing liquidity to your MTOs.
Yeah, so basically how that works is that if there is a MTO in your region who either needs to buy or sell USD, let's just say, for example, BitUSD, he needs some way to to top up his balance. So for example, if you have the Sendy app, perhaps you'll get a ping or a notification that says, X user or this MTO needs his balance to be liquidated with BitUSD. So you as an entrepreneur would get this notification. You would then go into the shop and go, hey, I will sell you BitUSD with a premium. Let's just say it's like 0.5, whatever the market rate is, 0.5%. And then he would go, yeah, okay, confirm. You would then give him the BitUSD, and then he would then give you cash and a bit of profit. So if you look at the white paper, we actually have it pretty laid out with diagrams and stuff like that on how it works.
Okay, so that kind of answers the other question where BitShares Wolf asked about,
oh, BitShares Wolf, hey!
So will customers be able to buy BitShares or BitUSD directly as kind of an on-ramp?
Yes. Okay.
Let me see something, buddy, here. When is Taifu going to dress like a pimp and drive Ferraris? Let's keep the questions related to Bitspark and the Zephir ICO. Yeah, that'll be probably coming in 2018. So the Ferraris, not the dress like a pimp part. So, all right. So that will wrap up this session on Bitspark with Maxine Ryan and the Zephir ICO. Would you be open to come back after the ICO is done and kind of like share with everyone a wrap-up summary or how it all went and everything?
Yes, I would love to do that, because I think that there needs to be more transparency as to how these things work, because I think it's a great way for people to raise money for their ideas. So yeah, I would love to come back, and I'd love to come back with my CEO, George Harrop, and then we can talk about it as a team, because there's a lot more components about it that, yeah, it's lots of different perspectives. So that would be great.
Okay, awesome. So you have any other last thoughts you want to share with our audience?
Yeah, so please join our discussions, which, we're on Discord, we're on BitShares chat, we're on Telegram, like you name it, whatever you like to use, please just start talking to us. We want to know your ideas. And also we've got 60% off on Bank to the Future, and also on our actual launch date, we've got 50% off, so don't miss out.
Okay, well, thanks for joining us on this broadcast, and we'll come to the end of the hour here, Maxine, and it's great having you on, and thanks for explaining everything clearly about the Bitspark remittance system and the Zephir ICO. If you guys want to follow or have more questions for Maxine, about the Bitspark project and the Zephir ICO, I have the links below in the description. Make sure you use the links in the description box and not some other links, because those are the correct ones. Obviously, anytime there's a new ICO out, there will always be people trying to make a fake website. So I have put the correct domain to the best of my knowledge. And if you can inspect that, also, when you get a chance, and let me know if there's anything wrong with any of the domain names that I put at the bottom. And then also the Twitter handle for Maxine Ryan, it's twitter.com/Maxie Ryan. And I also put the Twitter handle for the Bitspark BTC, so you guys can follow them if you guys have more questions or information on it. And thanks for coming on this show today, Maxine, and we'll look forward to talking to you again in the future after your Zephir ICO is done, to see how it went and see what the kind of give us a summary on it, And then if you guys like this video, give us a thumbs up, right? Bitcoin Meister says, pound that like button. Give us a thumbs down so we'll know not to do it again in the future. And,
no.
and if you guys want to learn more about any future broadcasts we have, or any future ICO interviews that we do, make sure you guys follow us at www.cryptocurrency.market/newsletter. And thanks for watching this, and this will conclude the broadcast. Thanks, everyone.